This is the beauty we've been waiting for. This is the worst issue with my bike, is that the rear monoshock is completely useless other than holding the bike up when nobody's sitting on it. It has no dampening whatsoever. It's all spring. It's got to go. It's not rebuildable. And I did look at replacing it with a slightly more expensive new unit and also with a less expensive KLR 650. But then you have to do modifications to the linkage to get the ride height back to regular. So I went with this in-between option from Bitubo, world champion international. Basically this ended up being $600 shipped from Italy. It was held up in Italy for over 3 weeks with clearance delay. So I'm standing around here riding my bike like a pogo stick around town, waiting and checking on the shipping on this thing every day. I finally contacted the seller on eBay, and they went ahead and lit the fire under DHL. It was hung up with DHL to be fair, but it was hung up in Italy with DHL. Well, here it is, and I have to say, it is nice. That's a nice, attractive unit. It is completely rebuildable and serviceable, whereas the factory is not, because this is screwed in at the bottom, and then also change out the nitrogen charge here. This particular shock has 7 different dampen settings, so I would assume that this is rebound damping, because compression would be up here, but who knows, maybe it is compression and rebound. The more expensive unit I was looking at had adjustable compression, dampening, compression and dampening, rebound dampening rather. I don't know how useful that would be on the 250 because you really don't have access to the top of the shock. I don't know, to work clickers up there, I guess after you did some tuning. What I like about this is hopefully I can access this, you know, with no tools at the bottom of the swing arm. So if I'm going to go to 2-up riding, I can just click that up and then click it back down for trail riding and road riding and 1-up riding. I did order the stiffest shock that they had. I told them I was 225 pounds with gear, and I did intend to ride 2-up and with luggage and hard stuff. So hopefully they sprung and dampened this to the max. I'm actually lighter than that with gear now. I'm about 215 with my gear on, but I absolutely positively wanted the stiffest one I could get, and boy, if I got to turn the clickers down all the way to soft, I'll be happy. Absolutely happy to do that. So we are going to get into it. I'll shoot some video maybe of the before and after, how the bike, the KLR 250 pogo stick rides. I really can't even assess the front until I have the back squared away. The back is just so out of control. The front's actually holding the bike down. Anything over 50 miles an hour, you can actually induce a resonated bouncing, and if you don't kind of chase that out with your legs and scoot up on the tank, over 60 it's really pretty sketchy hitting any bumps at all, but I've been trying to limit myself to under 60. So there we go. This is a tool, I presume, yes, to adjust the spring tension. It's pretty much all the way in its softest position, so I do have a lot of travel there to crank that down to get my preload and my ride height where I want it. So I got a tool, and most importantly, when you pay $600 for something from Italy and you get a fine, good-looking box like that, you want some dang stickers. And I got some dang stickers, so we'll have to figure out where we're going to put those stickers. Alright, I'm going to bring the bike in a little bit. Maybe I'll shoot some video of it boinging down the road, and then get her on the stand and go to work. Alright, stay tuned. Okay, so we got the 250 in the shop here, the KLR Kawasaki for the shock absorber swap out with the Bitubo aftermarket replacement unit. Shock came out much easier than I thought. I had seen a bunch of people say that you had to remove the whole rear subframe, and I will show you in a minute how I was able to avoid that. But just getting the shock out on the bench and mounting it, or laying it down next to the replacement unit, everything adds up. Length looks good, holes look good, and the fork spacing looks good. So that would have been a real bummer if for some reason any of that was off. It would be an expensive paperweight. So there you have it. So what I did was got the bike up on the motor jack with forward bias so that the back tire was in the air. Removed the upper strut bolt from there after taking the seat and the plastics off, and then had to remove 3 of the retaining clips and 2 of the linkage pins. Right there, everything in that grip tight tray is everything I had to take off to get that shock out. That's not a lot of stuff. Had it out pretty quick. So this rear subframe bolts on here, and on later models of the KLR 250 there. Earlier models of the KLR 250, the passenger peg was ridiculously mounted to the swing arm. I guess that was so the passenger could help beef up with their legs the ultra soft suspension. I don't know, that's a joke. But once I got it apart, I dropped the rear wheel as far down as it would go, and there was no way it was coming out. Then I noticed once I picked the tire up, there was actually enough clearance here to drop it out the bottom. So once I jacked that tire up, it's not even up all the way, I was able to get it out. And I did look at the, let me get my flashlight here. I was really quite pleased with the condition of the bearings inside. Bearings look good. They look like they have good grease. They're not in bad shape at all. Now would be a good time to service those as far as replacing them if need be. Seals look good. The grease looks good in there. Bearings look good in here as well. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to grease those up. But if those looked bad, I would probably even drop this 3rd pin out and grease it. But with the condition that that looks, I wouldn't even remove that to grease it. We'll see. We'll do it as I start riding this thing. Probably going to ride this mostly on the street, but I do intend to take it on some trails. Probably not going to be submersing it like I did with the old WR400 or anything like that. But yeah, so we'll slip that new unit in, and that's how I was able to avoid removing the whole subframe. Alright, so I'm going to slap that Italian job in there and put her back together, see how she do. Okay, the new KLR 250 shock is in. It looks good. I'm pretty happy with it yet. Fit and finish, I had some problems. My biggest problem was up top here. They use a spherical bearing on the top, which is okay. I mean, that really isn't going to be moving around a whole lot, but they use 2 spacer bushings in there. They have O-rings in those spacer bushings, which I kind of think is overkill. And they do not want to stay in there. So when you're loading the shock from the bottom here, those were much happier out of the top of the shock than they were in. And those O-rings create some squish, and it did not want to get into that saddle. And I dropped them a couple times, had to hunt them down and get the O-rings again. I considered grinding them down, but what I did was I put this top mount bolt in about halfway in, and then I used the hammer of justice and a solid drift to whack the crap out of it a few times and spread that saddle out. After I did that, after I did that, it slid in there quite nicely, and by putting a jack under the back tire, I was able to align everything down at the bottom. So it is in there. I cranked the preload on this down about halfway of what's available, maybe slightly less, and I have it, this is actually the adjustment. Well, we're gonna need it. I mean, it's not the easiest to get to, but it's not the worst. You wouldn't want to put the shock in facing the other way because the chain guide and all that. So right now I'm 2 clicks out of the highest. I'm trying to get that shot for you. That's the adjustment. So we'll see. I got to do some testing on it now. I'll wait to put the side plastic. I'll put the seat back on it. I'll do my testing. That way, if I need to crank down on this barrel nut here, I can. They do give you a tool for that with the shock. Yeah, that's the tool they give you, which is nice because it gives you, if you have a hard time getting in at this, for instance, you can kind of come in at it like that with the bent end, and then come back at it with the. This is my best access at this, and it's not great. You really can't get at that from the other side. The shock is offset on the KLRs. I think the 650 and the 250 to the left side fairly significantly, so that is what you have to work with. I cranked that down while I still had it on the bench most of the way, just so that I could get it to, I could do a full half turn on that before I mounted it. So alright, stay tuned for the testing. I am expecting great things. Alright, so it's been a while, but as promised, doing a follow-up on the Bitubo World Champion aftermarket replacement monoshock, rear shock for the KLR 250. There's only a few options for you if you have a KLR 250 to replace the rear shock. You cannot rebuild the stock one unless you know someone who is super handy, because it is welded. You could go ahead and cut that out with a grinder, disassemble the shock. In most cases, the oil has long since departed, which was the case with this one. So you'd probably have to rebuild that whole bottom piece because the seals are gone, it's wiped out. Just isn't really a good option. Kawasaki, last I heard, does still kind of sell it for like $1,200, which is about what the bikes are worth in running condition. I bought mine for like $1,350. There was a $350 option I saw on eBay for zero adjustment other than spring preload, and then there was the Bitubo, which was about $600 shipped with a dampening adjustment, and then there was the Moab and Moab Pro or something like that that was like $700 and like then $800. So I went with the Bitubo. I had to wait a little while for it. There was a hiccup in the shipping. They did contact DHL and finally sort that out. But I gotta say, I'm kind of frugal, and especially only paying $1,300 for the bike, paying $600 for one part on it. I was kind of had big shoes to fill. Totally a believer. It is a whole new motorcycle. It is better than it ever was from the showroom floor. I did own one of these. It was like a 1987 model back in 1989, and even then that rear shock was, for me, it's like 135 pounds. And that rear shock was soft junk and whooped. I don't know, a lot of people, I did not know this, and this is the second one of these I've owned. This stock shock was actually adjustable with 4 different settings, but it doesn't really matter if it's undersprung and the dang seal blows out and all the oil goes and the nitrogen goes. So anyway, I just shot my after video. The shock is super compliant. I have been riding it on the road, and I have the preload set right now for about through 2 inches of sag when I get on the seat for street riding, with the dampening clicking in the second softest position, which is how I normally ride it on the road. If I'm going to do some dirt roads and stuff, I'll click it up to the 3rd position. And I just got back from the Poconos, and I hold the bike up on the back of my camper and rode it 2 up with my girlfriend. So that is 2 full-grown adults to be, I'm over 200 pounds, I'm 6'2", and I didn't adjust the spring preload. I just took the clicker up to the 2nd from stiffest position and went out around the lake with it. Thought it was maybe a little soft, so we stopped at a lookout point, and I went ahead and I cranked that up to the stiffest position. Actually felt the dampening was a little bit stiff on it. What it really needed was some more spring preload, but I wasn't going to dial that in, just for a quick ride. We rode it for about 45 minutes, 2 different nights, and we were both fine and comfortable on it. And the roads up there, Pennsylvania, are not great. They're pretty bad, to be honest with you. At some point, they could be considered unimproved roads. And I actually went ahead and told her, hey, I was going to slam the thing into the potholes instead of trying to avoid them, just to see how the suspension worked. And it was fine. We were comfortable. That KLR 250 seat is like a bench seat, a nice wide bench seat. All these new bikes have these super narrow seats that only support a specific part of your crotch that you don't necessarily want to be sitting on. All right, so yeah, I'll tell you what, that thing's a better dirt bike than a bunch of 1980s dirt bikes were now. Nothing wrong with that front. That front definitely has progressive fork springs in it. There's no way they're stock. I actually find that they're a little harsh riding one up on the road, so I dumped the air pressure out of it. I have not cracked it open, but there's no way they're stock. But the bike wheelies now with a good amount of clutch and you know, loading up the pegs. I'm not a big wheelie guy myself, but I do like to be able to loft the front tire to clear obstacles. I'm gonna have to take it off-roading yet. It doesn't, but so stay tuned for that review. The Bitubo rear shock, worth every penny in my opinion. It is expensive, but you got a whole different motorcycle when you put that on. So I'm not sponsored or paid for them, other than the stickers they gave me. They give everybody when you buy the shock. So full disclosure, I have no problem with it. And I've heard the same thing about everyone who's put the Moab shocks on. And I kind of scoffed at spending $1,200 to redo suspension on a $1,200 bike. But everybody said the same thing, and I'm sure they're right. They do have a cartridge upgrade front. Kind of like Race Techs, if you want to go that far. I'm not going to go that far right now. I might do it later because I'm going to get a lot of value out of this bike. So, alright man, yeah, total thumbs up on that. I'm not disappointed, even though it's the #1 most expensive thing that I've done to the bike. Alright man, have fun, be safe riding, and keep the rubber side down, unless you're doing backflips or front flips. I don't know. I'm not going to judge.